What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Just got back from a run in Philadelphia and New York. I saw some Guitar Corner friends at our little show at Rockwood Music Hall in New York City. Falcon, thank you for the gifts. Jake Shima Bakura was in the house. Ukulele phenom, master, genius. My man Jim Wilcox, who got me this guitar when mine got stolen, was in the house. Some good people there. Shows are going good. We got one more week to go. I'm about to hop over to Asheville here in a bit, but I want to play a little thing I've been working on, little three-note chord idea, and then I got something fun to talk about. Another great idea from Jason Coker out there, aka Chief Justice. Always starting with the music. Let's make a loop. All right, fun. So that is, Foo Fighters fans know this is the Dave Grohl. Go here, 757, in the same shape that we had with 10, 9, 11 right here on the C. 3, 2, 4, and then open 2, open. Some harmonics, some of the other stuff we're always doing, dyads, passing tones. And all that stuff is been an E a lot lately. Love using the harmonics, but mostly just Aeolian, mostly just a minor scale, and running those shapes on the neck. So this is going to be fun. I dug out some of the old concert tickets. I left some in the case here because there's a whole lot of Kiss tickets. There's a whole lot of Queensryche tickets from back in the day. But I dug out a few of these because Jason Coker asked me about the difference in studio and stage. And any of you who've made records and then gone out and played them live know this. It is it's its own art form to get what you've done in the studio out on the stage in a way that reflects the record you made, or maybe in a way that gives somebody a little extra from the record you made. I don't have the wonderful blessing or set of problems of having a huge hit, so changing things up is not that tough for our wonderful little tribe out there. But I will say it is very interesting to hear from artists and, those of us that aspire to get something where we get that fancy problem of someone saying, it doesn't sound like the record. That means somebody cares enough. That's a good thing. I've been accused, rightfully so, of having live records that are more of what people wish were in the studio because the energy is different and it's the live musicians. But I'm going to tell a few stories with these ticket stubs because this question that Chief raised is so perfect because I have always studied this with other players. I'm sure you know this too. There's shows you go to, they play the record exactly like it was. Some of them using background tracks, so of course it sounds the same. But sometimes you're really glad because you're like, okay, I came to hear this. You didn't play me all your new stuff that I didn't know. And then if we're really a fan of a band that's a band that kind of, lives or dies by their art, and we're used to them, trying different things. And people used to say if they go see Bob Dylan, he'd have his back to the crowd and, play nothing that you knew. I think that might be the furthest extreme of it. But you go to see a band like Radiohead, you're thrilled if they put in a new song because you know that's what they do. They're always experimenting, even though they said, having to play Creep a million times almost killed them when they're on the road. But expectations are a funny thing. For me, I definitely try to recreate some of the sounds from the studio. And it does hit me when I'm recording, like, we ought to stick to at least some of the pedal board that's going to be out there, just to have, these tones that I like to rely on with the guitars. But these last couple years, I've definitely made some far out, kind of weirder records that we are not playing live. We have a record coming up that is more of a live record, and we're already sort of working towards that on the road because I think that there won't be such a discrepancy between what's on, what you're streaming at home and watching for videos and what is out there on the stage. There's a lot can be done with drums, bass, a couple guitars, and 3-part vocals. So I try to remind myself of that when I start going down some movie soundtracky rabbit hole and driving Aaron and Kelsey and my manager Ryan, batty with all the different styles I like to do. So I don't believe it has to be consistent. I do think if it's a legacy artist, they're of course going to expect to hear a few different things. Let me just run through the tickets because some of the stories actually are directly from these artists that I've seen that I think will answer some of these questions and give us some something to think about if we're building up tracks at our houses and hoping to get them out there on the road someday. Kiss, of course, Kiss was going to come up first. They've basically been playing, the same songs off their first 3 records, as 80% of their set since their first reunion tour in 1996. But I love them to death. Can't mess with them. It's always a great live show. But I mean, that would be the other side of it, is go for the nostalgia, only play what they expect. Very rarely a new song. What's funny is if any Kiss fans out there, if you see them play acoustic, like on the Rock Cruise or them, doing one of they used to do all these meet and greet conventions in the 90s before they put the makeup back on. They're actually incredible. If you ever saw MTV Live, the Kiss Unplugged, they're great. I mean, people don't understand. They're great at playing acoustic stuff and they're great at bringing back old songs, but they do it very rarely. Someone's got to get that money, baby. What do I know? Radiohead. I was just talking about them. Saw them at the Hollywood Bowl. One of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. They didn't play Creep, which nobody expected them to after all the talking about, breaking on one song and sort of having it as like an anchor, being stuck with it. I played a lot of stuff off of, I think it was Kid A, Amnesiac era, but they played a lot of the OK Computer stuff, so I was happy as a clam. Ani DeFranco, I think Prince called her his favorite guitar player, one of the strongest, most badass players ever. She had duct tape around her fingers, was just slamming the guitar. I didn't know all of her stuff when I saw her, so a lot of it was new to me, but as I started buying her records, she represented a little of each record, which I think for people with a big fan base, who've really been a big fan base, active fan base that really stays with them, that's a nice thing because people let you move a little bit, and if you will hit something off of every record, I think usually you have pretty happy campers. Sting. Sting said probably the greatest thing about all this, he said, I get paid a lot of money. My job, I get paid a lot of money for, is to figure out how to play Roxanne with feeling every night of my life. So talk about somebody who's aware of that sort of, the trap of having a hit everybody expects you to play for their ticket price, but also isn't gonna, I've seen him on the road do that song completely differently and then go back to the record version exactly just to shake it up. But you always get your money's worth, and I think he understands that that transfer really beautifully, that the fans need to get what they want, but you got to not go insane. I saw the Yellow Jackets when I was little at the Roxy in Wichita. This is instrumental kind of modern jazz, but they were freaking incredible. I knew the records, so everything they played I knew. U2, another maybe the best example of a superstar band that gives you what you came to see, also is doing deep cuts, also is always changing the kind of choreography, stage presence, the stage. Those are 4 of the smartest human beings alive. I have a whole shelf of U2. I'm a U2 nerd. You want to talk about taking care of a family, a band family, their fans, the people that work for them. Their whole operation just seems so wired tight. Sade, saw her back in the day. Incredible. She just basically played Love Deluxe top to bottom, but it was awesome. Here's the blast from the past. Mr. Big. Talk about a band that at the time was a little bit upset about their hit being the only thing people knew. They got a bunch of teenage fans because they had this song To Be With You, this acoustic thing that was a #1 20 freaking years ago. And they didn't play the song. The whole set, it was metal and hard rock and all the stuff that I was happy to come for as a guitar nerd. They just, I would say, drilled down. They actually used drills on the necks. Paul Gilbert's one of my favorite guitar players and seems like the kindest human being. I haven't met him. It just seems freaking unbelievable. But anyway, they played their whole set, didn't play their hit, went off, went back out for the encore, and of course played that song. But you could tell that Eric Martin wasn't thrilled with it because he goes, well, I don't know when your parents are going to be here to pick you up, but here's the one you came for. And then they finally played it. Queensryche did kind of a similar thing once they played everything they wanted, then came back out with Silent Lucidity, which I thought was a way of them saying, a lot of you are only here for the hit. But hey, if somebody doesn't have the hit, you're not filling the arena. So we got to be careful not to be ungrateful. Joe Bonamassa, another great, thanks to Ryan Romanesco for taking me to the Dolby Theater to see Joe. They work with him I heard a story about Joe down in Oklahoma. I may have told this in the Guitar Corner before. He said a really great thing. He goes, when I get to the show, I'm like a jewel salesman, and I get out my jewels to, basically to show the crowd. The jewels are the songs. And he says, I'm not going to go in there and show you something unpolished or something that, I'm going to show you my best work. So I think that's another way of saying, yeah, there is a commitment to making sure you hit the things that have moved people. Because whether you're sick of playing a song or not, this is people's lives. They've had experiences. They've had things that, have happened where the song is with them. We all know that feeling where you don't even know how your mind is singing a song in its entirety without you actively thinking about it. Music is, there's ghosts. It's such an incredibly powerful thing. I think we have to respect that. Now I say that, and I was in a band with Chief back in the day called Safety Orange. We had two songs that everybody wanted to hear when we were playing the clubs at Wichita. Cathedrals of Spain, which was this 12-minute crazy guitar instrumental, which I'm sure I'll play on here sometime. The wonderful Latin chords you could do all day. E minor, C, A minor, B major. Those changes, you could play on those. I'm not going to go into a whole thing here because I'll get to the point, but you could play, somebody at home, try those changes. You could rock on that till the cows come home. But I got to a place with my stupid, cocky, young little garbage attitude that, well, I don't want to Say Something, or I don't feel like playing Cathedrals. And after a while, I didn't play those tunes for some of the shows. And it was the dumbest thing you could do. First of all, it wasn't like we were freaking, known everywhere. We didn't have any hits. We were lucky to have the fan base we had. They were amazing. But I really disrespected that incredible honor that somebody cared about the first few songs that I wrote. And they were very early songs for me. I was not an accomplished songwriter whatsoever, very green. Had some good beginner's luck. I had a beginner's mind. But if I had it to do over again, I would have played those two songs every time. You say jump, how high? Not because I'm selling out the other songs, but because there's a way to make those new. And if you want to put yourself out there, if you're going out there to play anyway, you're asking somebody for their hard-earned money. And let's be honest, what some of these acts charge when you look at what people get paid at a minimum wage job, there is a sacred bond there. So yeah, I was a bit of a shit back in the day. I should have played more. I should have showed the good jewels, as Joe Bonamassa said. Okay, a couple more. Willie Nelson. We've already done a whole episode on Willie Nelson. Brilliant. Now, granted, Willie's been pretty much playing that same set for a long time too, but he's 82 freaking years old. Is bought and paid for, as Joe Procazzo would say. Bought and paid for. He could do whatever he wants. Another quote from Joe Procazzo, my old manager out of Elizabeth, New Jersey. He used to go, you go ahead and make your artistic record. I don't care. You could. This is horrible because I'm an animal guy, but he says you could bang two dead badger carcasses together. I don't care, but you got to give me some singles. And that was his thing to say. Look, you can have some for you, and you can have some for everybody else. But you got to be thinking of what you're going to do live in the crowd. Tricky at the Granada back in the day. I think he was so high. I don't know what he was playing, but I still love Tricky. Bjork, incredible show. Really played mostly was off the records. Now her records are so out there anyway. You're not going to hear that many hits, but I love her. Here's a surprise from back in the day. Duran. I was not any incredible expectations. They were incredible live, and they brought some extra musicians. A woman that sang background vocals that just murdered, and they did a wonderful blend of hits and new stuff. Government Mule. Oh. That was one of the tightest, biggest sounding three pieces I've ever heard in my life. And that's Jam bands get an exception to this rule because we expect we're going to hear whatever the little bit of the hook is, and then they're going to go off for 10 minutes. Some of us love it. Some of us hate it. My man Wade Hampton, if you're watching this, he's going, oh, no jam bands. But for a lot of us on the guitar corner to hear, Alan Haynes, to hear, them go off on the guitar, bass, drums, was Matt Apps on the drums. It was like, just thunder coming down from the sky. It was unbelievable. White Buffalo, just saw him just a couple months ago here in Nashville. Great performer, such an incredible energy. Sounds exactly like the record. It's pretty much an acoustic bass and drums. And what's cool, and sometimes the bass man will go over and hit the keys a little bit. But what's really great about him, his voice is so strong, there's almost really no background vocals. And I think he does that live, or on his CDs probably purposely, because it's something he can represent live. His voice is big enough, he doesn't need that much backing. And it's another person, he's got a tribe. Since Sons of Anarchy, one of the greatest shows ever made, since he murdered that soundtrack. And I actually got to go to a show in LA where a lot of the different artists from that, from the Sons of Anarchy soundtrack played at I think it was the Troubadour. And I met White Buffalo. He's as incredible and kind as you'd ever want to think. I also used to live not too far from where he lived in LA, and I always be riding my bike up to Mulholland, and he was just out there with his kids. Hey, I'm just like, that's the White Buffalo. I'm still like a little kid, man. That dude's so cool. But anyway, he's one of those people that has a tribe. So I think a couple tunes from each record, and you're happy. That's a great career to have. I think those of us that grew up seeing, John Bon Jovi on a steel horse I ride, and you're in the bus and a million people, you get those sort of delusions of grandeur. But you read those rock and roll bios, a lot of those guys ended up, if they weren't wired tight inside when they went into that crazy world, man, it ate them up. Okay, probably the best live show ever. I talked about this when I did Prince, the Genius of Prince episode of Guitar Corner. This was the Keel Center. This is the one I went to with Chief. You're coming up all over the place. That we went to. Nobody better. I've heard that towards the end there, Prince was starting to really. We would play some shows where he wasn't playing the hits. But at a Prince concert, if he's playing his catalog, he's playing a hit. He had freaking 35 hits. So I've never seen an artist do a better job of giving you everything you came for, but the musicianship and the energy is so high that you want to go where he wants you to go. He commands the crowd. And I think there's my final answer to the question. Justice is if the artist is emoting, if the artist is controlling the vibe, and you got a good, captain of the ship, I think you're more willing to go in all those different places. I haven't seen Springsteen, but I've heard that energy so high, you really don't care whether you're hearing the hit or the deep cut. You're just excited to be in that metaphysical, vibe in the room. But yeah, Prince had so many hits. I've heard Elton John does this too. He would just do medleys of hits just to get through them. Unreal. Daniel Lanois. I worship Daniel Lanois as a player, as a producer. And I met him after the show, and he was incredible. But frankly, I hadn't been up on his latest record, and it was so experimental. In an instrumental situation, it can be hard to follow if you don't know the record. So he wasn't, he doesn't have, hits per se, but he was not real worried about, where he was taking us. So anyway, hopefully that's got us all thinking about, I would love to hear what, in the comments, what band you saw that you felt really let you down, as far as maybe they didn't play the hits, they played too many and didn't experiment, or who you thought really just nailed it. I guess out of that bunch, I would say definitely Prince, and surprisingly Duran Duran and White Buffalo. And not surprisingly on Duran Duran, but I just always thought of him as such a pop act, but really incredible. Oh, last one. I don't have the ticket stub because we got to open earlier in the day for him, but the Beastie Boys were one of the other most murdering acts I've ever seen. A blend of hits and new stuff, but their showmanship was so incredible. Everything they did was so high energy. They were so freaking good. They could have led us anywhere. It was down at Voodoo Fest back in the day. Shout out to Maggie Dixon and Star Polish. Anyway, okay, I'm approaching the freaking 20-minute mark here. I love y'all. I hope you got something out of this. Chief, thanks for the awesome ideas here. And we'll talk soon. I'm going to do a rig rundown and some other stuff coming up. Thanks, y'all.